Tonight we look back at a story shrouded in myth, the Titanic. A name that brings to mind icebergs, tragedy, and a single powerful word, unsinkable. But did people really believe this ship could not sink before its first and only journey? The answer is more complex than a simple yes or no. The idea was certainly present. It appeared in newspaper articles and magazines of the time. The White Star Line, the company that owned the ship, also hinted at its incredible safety. The claim existed, but it was not the main story everyone was talking about. It was more of a whisper than a shout, a background detail in a much larger narrative of progress and power. The truth is, the notion of an unsinkable ship captured the spirit of the era. This was a time of great technological advancement and confidence. People were building bigger, faster, and more impressive things than ever before. The Titanic was the ultimate symbol of this human achievement. So, when publications used phrases like practically unsinkable, the public was ready to believe it. This wasn't just about one ship. It was about a belief in humanity's ability to conquer nature. The idea was comforting, suggesting that modern engineering had finally overcome the dangers of the sea, a foe that had claimed ships for centuries. Before the disaster, the word unsinkable was not attached to the Titanic as strongly as we remember it today. It was one of several impressive claims made about the ship. The media and the ship's owners were careful. They often used cautious language. For example, an issue of magazine described the ship in a special edition, noting its safety features made it practically unsinkable. That one word, practically, is very important. It shows there was an understanding that no ship could be completely immune to disaster. But in the excitement of the moment, that small but crucial qualifier was often overlooked by the public. This belief, however limited, had real consequences. As the Titanic began to take on water after hitting the iceberg, many passengers were not immediately alarmed. They had been told the ship was safe. Some survivors later reported a sense of disbelief on the decks. Why rush to a tiny lifeboat when you are on the safest ship in the world? A high-ranking official from the shipping company even told the U.S. Congress he did not believe the initial reports of the sinking. His reason was simple. He thought the ship was unsinkable. This false sense of security tragically delayed the evacuation for some, costing precious time. The Titanic's design was truly state-of-the-art for its time. The man behind it, Thomas Andrews, was a brilliant naval architect. He designed the ship with safety as a top priority. The most celebrated safety feature was its 16 watertight compartments. These were sections in the lower part of the hull that could be sealed off if there was a leak. The massive steel doors separating these compartments could be closed with the flip of a single switch on the bridge. This technology was revolutionary. It was believed that the ship could stay afloat even if 2, 3, or even 4 of these compartments were completely flooded with water. This design was the basis for the unsinkable claim. The engineering theory was sound. The ship was built to withstand the kind of damage that had sunk other vessels in the past. No one imagined a scenario where more than 4 compartments would be breached at once. The gash created by the iceberg was long and thin, running along the side of the ship and damaging 5 compartments. This was the fatal, unforeseen blow. The system was designed to handle a head-on collision or damage to a small area, but not a long slice that compromised so much of the hull's integrity. Despite these impressive safety features, they were not the main selling point. The White Star Line knew its target audience, the wealthy and the elite. For them, the journey was just as important as the destination. Therefore, the advertisements and newspaper articles focused overwhelmingly on the ship's immense size and unparalleled luxury. The Titanic was marketed as a floating palace. It had a grand staircase, a swimming pool, Turkish baths, squash courts, and lavish suites that were more opulent than rooms in the finest hotels. These were the things that truly captured the public's imagination and sold tickets to first-class passengers. The focus was on comfort, grandeur, and status. The ship was a symbol of social standing. To sail on the Titanic's maiden voyage was to make a statement. The advertisements showed pictures of its beautiful interiors, not diagrams of its watertight compartments. The message was clear. This was not just a way to cross the Atlantic, but an experience in itself. Safety was assumed to be part of the package, a given in such a modern marvel. But the real story being sold was one of luxury and prestige. The ship's size was a key part of this, a visual representation of its superiority over all other vessels on the sea. On the cold, clear night of April 14, 1912, the unthinkable happened. The Titanic, on its very first voyage from Southampton to New York City, struck an iceberg. For the approximately 2,200 people on board, the initial impact was subtle. Many passengers slept right through it. But below the waterline, the damage was catastrophic. The iceberg had scraped along the ship's starboard side, creating a series of holes that flooded the first 5 watertight compartments. The ship was designed to survive 4 flooded compartments, but not 5. Water began spilling from one compartment into the next like water overflowing an ice cube tray. The unsinkable ship was in fact sinking. The Unsinkable moniker became truly famous only after the disaster. The irony was just too powerful to ignore. The greatest ship ever built, the triumph of modern technology, was defeated by a piece of ice on its first trip. Newspapers around the world seized on this tragic twist. The word unsinkable, which had been used cautiously before, was now printed in giant headlines. It became the defining word of the tragedy. The story was no longer just about a shipwreck. It became a cautionary tale about human arrogance and our relationship with nature. The legend of the unsinkable Titanic was born from its own watery grave. The sinking of the Titanic was a slow and horrifying event, lasting over 2.5 hours. As the ship's bow dipped lower into the icy Atlantic, the reality of the situation set in. Panic and chaos grew, especially as it became clear there were not enough lifeboats for everyone. In the end, of the roughly 2,200 souls on board, it is estimated that about 1,500 people lost their lives. The exact number remains uncertain due to incomplete passenger lists and confusion over who was officially counted. But the scale of the loss was staggering, sending shockwaves across the globe. The tragedy did not affect everyone equally. The crew suffered the most, with around 700 fatalities. They worked until the very end, trying to keep the lights on and launch the lifeboats. Among the passengers, the highest death toll was in third class, also known as steerage. These were immigrants and families seeking a new life in America. Located in the lower parts of the ship, they had the hardest time reaching the boat deck. Only about 174 of the approximately 710 third-class passengers survived. Their story is a heartbreaking reminder of the class divisions that existed even in the face of death. The sinking of the Titanic was more than just a maritime disaster, it was a profound wake-up call. The world had placed immense faith in technology, believing it had conquered the old dangers of the world. The Titanic was the ultimate expression of that confidence. Its sinking shattered this illusion in a single night. The tragedy forced people to confront the reality that no matter how advanced our creations are, they are never completely infallible. Nature remains a powerful force, and human overconfidence can have devastating consequences. The story became a lesson that is still taught today, a reminder to approach progress with humility. In the aftermath, inquiries were launched in both the United States and Great Britain to understand what went wrong. The findings led to major changes in maritime safety regulations. One of the most important new rules was that every ship had to carry enough lifeboats for every single person on board. This simple, logical rule was not in place before the Titanic. The disaster also led to the creation of the International Ice Patrol, an organization that tracks icebergs in the North Atlantic to warn ships of potential dangers. These changes were a direct result of the lessons learned from that terrible night. The myth of the unsinkable ship continues to fascinate us over a century later. It has been the subject of countless books, documentaries, and blockbuster movies. The story taps into something deep within us, our fascination with great ambition and tragic failure. The Titanic represents both the peak of human ingenuity and the depths of human loss. The dramatic irony of the unsinkable ship sinking on its maiden voyage is a narrative so powerful that it feels like fiction. But it was real, and the lives lost were real. Its story is a permanent part of our collective memory. Ultimately, the Titanic serves as an enduring symbol. It reminds us that safety should never be taken for granted. The focus on luxury over practical safety measures, like having enough lifeboats, was a fatal error. The belief in its unsinkability created a false sense of security that cost lives. The tragedy taught the world a harsh but vital lesson. Preparation and respect for the unpredictable forces of nature are more important than any claim of perfection. The story of the Titanic is not just a story about a ship. It is a story about us, our ambitions, our vulnerabilities, and our capacity to learn from the past.